Film Companion gets you your film fix. Hit the bell icon and subscribe to get notified every time we drop a new video.
First of all, let me say that if this lineup was anywhere else in a non-pandemic world, we'd be at a damn music festival. Can we just acknowledge this? This is awesome. So imagine I have the likes of some of the best of the business today. I'm very excited to be speaking with you all. I'm going to ask you a question that a lot of people want to know after the discovery is done. Discovery personally for yourself and also once the world discovers you. How do you navigate? This word gets thrown around so much, which is the scene. How do you navigate the indie/Indian alternative music scene? Do you have a roadmap? Did anyone give you one? Or how are you stumbling across your opportunities? Tell us.
I think my entire career is a testament to like, oh shit, did that just happen? I don't think I've ever really had a roadmap in anything I've done. But what I can say is after the moment or whatever, let's say if you break through, it's really tricky to not, especially if you launch on a really big song, you have to figure out a way to not be a one-hit wonder. And that is entirely like, the ball is in your court to just continue making really good work and push yourself to grow out of the space that made you big or whatever your big moment was. So I think for me, the roadmap is just one direction. It's just improve, just keep doing better. Because I definitely could have been a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, no, thank God. And also constant collaborators, would you say, who are in a way better than yourself?
Absolutely. I think it's always about like, not even better or bigger. It's just people who are aligned in your like sonic space and in your sound space. Just because I think that in the like, current fight to get to the top and have the most followers and the most views and whatever, we sort of lose sight of the artistry. So it should only be about really improving on your own work. And whoever aligns best with whatever that improvement is, go for that rather than the numbers game or the fame or the who's bigger.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about the numbers in a bit. Before that, I'm going to take this to Raman. Raman, hi. I want to ask you, first off, how has the pandemic affected the fact that you can't go onto a stage and do what you perhaps would have enjoyed the most? How has the live scene not being around pushed you? How has that made life different for you as a musician? Tell us.
Well, to be honest, before all this craziness started in March, I guess. I think it was March 8th when all the gigs were cancelled in one day. Everybody got a call, well, it is shut now. And but we were anyway as a band, we were planning to take a break, in April for 2-3 months so that we get back to the studio, we start writing the new album. I think that has taken a big hit because then this happened and then we all went paranoid because of, COVID, nobody's going out, now everybody's going out all the time, but we couldn't jam because all the jam pads were shut. And as a rock band, we actually, I produce my music in my bedroom, but, to make music, write music with the band, I write with them, right? I couldn't do that. But, it actually sets you back a little bit as per your life plan and your goals. It kind of changed. But I actually took this time, and so many people ask me this question, how are you coping up with this? And it's been 6 months that we haven't played a gig or, the life is not normal. But I actually was looking forward to some break out of the touring that we've been doing for the last 2-3 years after our 2 albums. And I wanted to, as Lisa mentioned, the idea is not to get more numbers or to get more hits. Once you reach a point, then you think back in time that, well, I knew that much and I'm here. And it became about self-discovery and more to improve yourself as a musician. And I'm a songwriter and a composer and a singer for my band. I play guitars. So I just focused everything to my art, without any distractions. The only distraction is that you can't look in the future. You don't know and nobody knows. But then I've left that question now out of my brain. I just want to play my guitars. I want to just write songs and produce music better. And that's what I'm focused on. And that's why I keep telling everybody, man, when the sun shines, it's going to shine for all of us. So till that time, just get better. Just get better. It's not about always looking towards the goal. It's actually, try to actually, tweak your process, to love your process, even I think you can call it suffering. I really enjoy this process now. It's okay. I can wait a little bit more, before we go out.
Thank you. Absolutely, making the most of our times. Sahaj, I want to take the next question to you, and forgive me, I'm kind of going one after the other pretty rapidly, but I really need to cover a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
Now, streaming really changed the game. Streaming changed the way musicians were approaching their entire existence. From, which is my next gig that I'm going to play, it became how many people are listening, how many distributors do I have on board for a certain track. How do you think that has helped your music reach more people? Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, like traditionally, all of that used to be done by labels, right? By if you look in history, there have always been 6 or 5 or 7 major labels in the world, pretty much, and they have until pretty much very recently controlled all of the distribution and the way music gets around. Also, which artists get picked, right? Because you have to invest in an artist as the label to actually have a successful record on hand. So in a way, it's democratized the music, having basically anyone can go sign up for a service that puts your music on Spotify, Apple Music, Saavn and everything. But it also obviously leads to a much higher volume of music coming out all the time, right? So that's where social media comes in. And honestly, I'm kind of divided on whether social media is the biggest blessing to ever come to musicians or the biggest distraction to ever come along for a musician, because it's like a love-hate relationship. You definitely can't do without it. I definitely don't love it, because I would rather I do actually spend most of my days just in my studio, and I forget to post something for a really long time. And, then I'll get a call from somebody being like, hey, my manager or someone being like, you should post something, So anyway, but I mean, in my experience, most of the growth that I had was actually surprisingly through word of mouth. I started playing at my first gig. I had maybe 15 of my friends there because I literally invited them. It was my party. You have to come, right? And they came. And then by the 7th or 8th gig, only one of those actual close friends of mine was there. But, their friends of friends started showing up, and then friends of friends of friends. And before I knew it, there were people I'd never met before. And that's at least how my experience was. So I would say to musicians, don't overthink the whole situation. Yes, it's very dense, and yes, there's a lot of competition, and yes, you need to post on social media, but I think that music still does do the talking.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I'm going to take an audience question to Vasu. I'm not going to tell you what my question was because I find this a better question. Honestly, it's coming from Janvi Sharma from Panipat. She's a musician. She asks you, how do you look at the current indie music scene in India and where we're compared to other countries globally? So Vasu, do you have an insight into where we're doing or what we're doing okay or better or not?
Yeah, the situation is very different. In India, indie music as an industry hasn't really developed. It all comes under the big umbrella of Bollywood, which is... I don't know whether to really say whether it's good or bad. We are here. And in the West, indie music itself is a culture. People really listen to music. They follow artists like how we follow our Bollywood stars. For them, musicians are the stars. So they really take time out to go to festivals, spend days and nights. They camp and they listen to music. They really are into that. So the industry has also developed around it. So you have a tour manager, you have a manager, you have a booking agent, you have the club manager, you have all of those sorted. So here it's just one guy, one manager doing all of these work. He'll to take your equipments till goes to the next corporate CEO and book a show for you. He's doing everything. So our industry is not really that's just an example of where we are as an industry, indie industry. So it's not really out there. So there's some huge difference in how we are and how they are. And it's also reflecting in the kind of, in a way, the kind of music that I heard in the folk fusion section about how we are influenced by our Bollywood.
Well, we're going to talk about whether or not that influence is great or is it limiting. I'm sure we'll come back to that in a bit. Lisa, I'm going to take this to you, which is How do the million hits make a difference? The fact is that today, most artists reach their primary crowds through the internet versus discovering the artist at a gig. That model has changed completely, and you, my love, are the child of that model. So, so tell me, as a flag bearer of this, what do the million hits do for you?
First, let me apologize. But I feel like it's a necessary evil now in life, in work, in music, in art. I think it's a tastemaker. Like, social media has become the way that, you know, people discover everything, be it music, art, whatever, you know, like music just falls under that umbrella. I think that I got lucky because I don't know if it was luck or by design that I started doing this when I was really, really young. So I started making YouTube videos of me singing when YouTube itself was a year old, which meant I was 13. So there's a sort of immunity to chasing numbers, which I think Saija just said this, that we might get a call from a manager that says like, hey, can you post, hey, I have an idea for what you should do, you know, for a content piece next. And I guess somewhere like that is necessary, of course, for promotional reasons, but I didn't come from that. I think I was just making nonsense work and putting it out on the internet until it grew and had like a critical mass. And then obviously this big moment happened and now I'm here. That all aside, I think that now it's much more difficult. In just the past 2 years since I, you know, came on the scene in Bollywood, the pressure is so much more. Like, it is almost entirely a numbers game now. And yes. And that wasn't even there in 2018. That's definitely wasn't there when I started making these videos in 2007. So, I mean, you know, I sympathize with all of the musicians and artists and creators on the internet trying to break through, because especially, oh my God, let's talk about this year. Imagine how many people are able to dedicate their time to, you know, creating work from home. So the competition is tougher than ever. The way that the views are split between people's work is more, you know, yeah, it's by nature, it's tougher this year in this time than it ever has been. But my, you know, advice always is, I think everyone would echo this statement: do not chase the numbers. The numbers will come if the work is good. And correct. Like, nobody wants to hear bad music. You can't make something work if it's just not good. So your craft at the end of the day matters. Your work matters,
right? Because on one side you're like, as an artist, you don't want to chase the numbers. At the same beat, you're just like, oh, there's a song, it's got 5 million views. It may be a shit song. But at the same time, you know, somebody looks at you and says, hey man, we need to get the views. So it's so hard, and the sympathy of this lies.
Some of my biggest songs have been the stuff that I'm least happy with. And then almost always, I think everyone faces this, the best work is the one that nobody really knows or recognizes. But that's part of the whole thing. You know, you have your big moments, your breakthrough moments, your charted hits, and then you have the stuff that you really feel like, this is the music I make and this is my sound. And hey, if it gets, you know, I always use Pratik as an example. I would much rather be in a crowd of people where every single person is reciting my lyrics back to me. Every person in that crowd is singing words that I wrote and knows a composition that I made. And I would much rather that than a sold out stadium where people are just like, oh, she's popular, I'll go see her. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I try to think that the numbers don't matter. I know they do, but that's always just how I've operated within the space. And I don't know.
No, thank you for that insight. It's one for the heart and one for the EMI, guys. That's how I do my job. I'm like, okay, this one I'll do because I really want to do. Raman, I'm going to take this audience question to you up next. It's a nice question. It comes from Aram Gaur from Kulu. He's a guitarist and has asked you, what has changed in your inspiration to make music from when you started compared to now when you guys have established yourselves? How interesting. That's a very, very interesting question.
I think when you are just a kid in a small town, you're just writing, you don't think anything what we're discussing today about the numbers or about how you're going to release it. You just record a demo at home and just put it on YouTube. Like we started releasing music on YouTube in 2010, right? Because that was the only place. There was no label. There's still no label who actually pushes an artist like that. And we decided to do this on our own. And so, question about the inspiration. Man, honestly, I don't think anything has changed as a songwriter for me. Like, you have things when you're 22 to sit to talk about and you write those things. And you look back in time and you're like, well, what was that about? But as you grow old, you learn about the world, and because of the same song that you wrote when you were 22, you have the opportunity that you want to write a new song at the age of 30 or 35, where I am today. The inspiration still stays the same. The inspiration is my story. It's what you have to say to the world, and I get inspired from my life only. It's just that the inspiration these days is very less because, we are just closed in the screen these days. But nothing has changed. I still like the fact when I write a tune or write a song, it still makes me happy. It still gives me those, when you write a hook, sometimes happens in the morning or whenever it happens on a guitar, on a chord part, on a cadence or wherever you write a hook and you just feel, oh yeah, I still got it. Like it makes you happy, whether you pursue that or not. That is what I look forward to write those musical pieces, whether I follow them in the song or not. I would actually write them every day. That's what I do. And the inspiration is the same, man. I'm just looking for a cool guitar riff or just a cool hook and a great line on it so that I can pursue that as a song, and that sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I just stay inspired, man, by just playing the guitars. If you're a guitar player, right? This guy's a guitar player. Man, just write riffs, man. You'll find the inspiration.
Thank you, Raman. Thank you for being so honest. Sahej, I'm going to take this to you. I don't know if you've heard this term, but I have a lot because I've worked with radio for a while now. And there's this entire category that has emerged over the last couple of years. Lisa would probably know this category. It's called non-film music, where we're saying that the songs are not in part of films. So we've not called them singles. We don't call them EPs or LPs or any of that. We actually call them non-film music. What do you think? Because to me, and I'll just tell you quickly, this category is the most non-committal category. Instead of telling you what this category is about, it tells you what this category is not about. So it says, hey, we're not a film song. But it doesn't really tell you what it's about. So any thoughts? Has this category floated up to you in the past couple of years? And what have you made of this?
I mean, yeah, like the term non-film music is like being called South Asian or non-European, like you said, it's like, is that Bangladeshi or Pakistani or Sri Lankan or North Indian or South? I mean, like what, But like, I think I have come across the term, especially when I've done work with major labels and I've, worked with people from sort of across the border, across the river, if you will, from the independent scene to like how do I refer to it? Like the Bollywood scene, the mainstream sort of like the big machine, I think that like there was a period of time where I was in denial that like our scene is like its own sort of like freestanding thing. But actually, the more I found out about the country that I moved to 10 years ago, here, India, because I studied in LA, the more I realized that that Bollywood is so much bigger and so much more like everything really, like bigger, scale, size, scope and everything, that like there has to be some relationship between that and the independent industry. And I have to say that I have seen some really cool examples of that. Like there are certain films which actually have featured soundtracks from independent musicians. And we've seen a few crossover acts like, for example, a good friend of mine, Nuclear, right? He started out at around the same, he started out way before me, but we kind of came up together. And now, he's just actually yesterday like, released a song with Major Lazer in the States. And what I'm saying is that there has to be this sort of cross connection, right? And like both scenes aren't really actually independent of each other. And I think the term non-film music it actually probably just points towards like a lack of like awareness about how different various genres of music are outside of the film industry, because in the film industry, genres don't matter, doesn't matter. If it's a banger, it's a banger. If it's a hit, it's a hit, Nobody cares whether it's trap or hip hop or bass or house or whatever, But like, that's not the same in the independent scene where genres, I mean, they're a way of life, you know. You're not going to find many people from an easy show at my show. I mean, I hope I do, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a lifestyle is what I'm trying to say. Like, the people who listen to Negi don't just casually listen to him, they follow him, you know? Like, the people who will listen to my music will religiously go to festivals like Sunburn or Magnetic Fields or whatever. It's a way of life, you know? So, yeah, I think that hopefully there's more awareness in the bigger picture, and we stop being referred to as an umbrella term like non.
Yeah, thank you for letting me, get my angst out. Vasu, my question is, when we call ourselves independent musicians, the fact is that we can't really be independent because we're dependent on so many factors, right? We're trying to be independent, but I've seen over the last couple of months, especially this year, most major artists, and I'm talking about mainstream, big acts, Bollywood music producers, they've all also veered towards producing their own music. They've released their own albums. They've, launched their own labels. How important do you think as an independent artist, being a producer is also, does it go hand in hand with you?
Yeah, very much, because most of the time when I make my tracks, I almost do at least like 60 to 75% of my tracks. Like, I lay the rhythm, I lay the chords and everything. And then, of course, there is another producer or an arranger who comes and adds his own stuff. And I look at that also as a collaboration, where I have done some part of it and I leave the experts to do that. I mean, we can sit and learn mixing and everything you can do on your own as well. But when you let someone else add in their creativity and their process into coming into your track, it just takes another step above. And also, over a period of time when you're working on your own track, you are bound to be in one zone. Like, you can't see your own flaws, and probably you can't expand your ideas. So when you collaborate with others, it's just, there is possibility of the track going into many different directions. But you are the captain of the ship, and you need to focus on what you really want. So yes, definitely it always helps to be a producer of your track, but also it's nice to let others come into your track and see what is it that they can bring in to do something. Like someone like Sahaj, I know he does everything on his own. He doesn't need anyone else. He's like the boss. But someone like me, I love collaborating with artists. I love collaborating with many people. And I mean, my dream is I want to make a song where I have like 200 different artists coming in together and play live. That's my dream to make it happen.
I have collaborated with you guys.
Of course you have.
You know what you just said right there? I think that is such a beautiful note to end this on, because the idea of having 200 anybody's come together to do anything anymore has become such a distant dream. But Vasu, you've given us that image to kind of sum up today's, roundtable. You've been sort of trailblazers on your own path. So thank you so much for doing that, for creating consistently a sound that is uniquely your own. But most importantly, thank you so much for spending time and giving the scene, as we say, a little bit of a year, because a lot of musicians want to have that opportunity to come and make you listen to, ma'am, can you please listen to one track? And you were patient and you heard about 11,000 plus entries. So amongst yourselves. So thank you so much for doing this for the India Film Project, guys. And I hope that this was a valuable conversation for anybody who is inspired by you. Thanks a lot. See you guys.